All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this latest SBJ Live episode. We're always excited to have really great kind of case studies or partnerships on display, and we certainly have that today between Ronnie at the Mavs and Beau here at Deltatre. And basically today we want to tell the story and hear from these two about how they built and launched Mavs TV and this DTC solution. And I'm your host, Taylor Bloom. I'm on the SBJ management team here, and we're very excited to have this conversation. And one of the best things about this live storm environment we're in is that all of our attendees can ask questions and interact with Ronnie and Beau today. And so I assume if you signed up for this, you're curious about how they built Mavs TV and launched this, and you have some questions you may want to ask them. So please go ahead and take advantage of that. I just dropped a message here to kick us off. Please let us know perhaps where you're tuning in from. And then as we go and as the conversation progresses, feel free to drop some questions in there, like I said, and we'll do our best to work through them. So we typically do about 35 to 45 minutes on these conversations, but we'll see how it's going. That tends to be our sweet spot. And like I said, we're very grateful of Ronnie and Beau joining us. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. So obviously we're talking Mavs TV today. We're going to get into the whole narrative and story of how it was conceived and the launch and how it's doing. Beau, I was hoping you could help kick us off. Just quick background on your role at Deltatre and just kind of set the table there, because I want to make sure everyone kind of understands your role, what projects you're working on, partners, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Taylor. I think probably need a little bit more of an intro than Ronnie does here. But for those of you who don't know, my name is Beau Decker. I lead strategy and growth at Deltatre, which really means my team works with our clients across sports, media, entertainment, not just to evaluate and build the business case for going direct to consumer, but actively support our partners all the way through the inception of their platform, through their go-to-market, and then in an ongoing capacity from like a marketing and analytics standpoint through their entire product life. So a little bit of background about myself. Before Deltatre, I spent a decade working in different businesses within Endeavor. Most recently, I built and ran the audience development practice at Endeavor Streaming. So this direct-to-consumer OTT world is something I've been living for many years. And so if you're not familiar with Endeavor Streaming, after being competitors with Deltatre for many years, Endeavor Streaming was acquired by Deltatre in 2025, which brought together two leading streaming providers underneath one roof. And so that plus Deltatra's existing other digital platforms business, as well as our data, graphics, and broadcast businesses, give us this ability to help partners create experiences that engage users, grow their value, open new revenue streams. I think the easiest way to think about that Deltatre, if you're not familiar at all, is if you consume sports or entertainment in any digital capacity, there's a pretty high likelihood you've been on one of our platforms, right? We work with the major 5 US leagues. We work with major international OTT deployments like LFP, Rogers, Bell. We support 300 properties globally, but I'm super excited to get into what we've done with Ronnie and the Mavs, because I think not only am I extremely proud of the work that's been done, I think it's one of the most exciting and also one of the most important direct-to-consumer executions that we've seen in sports. So yeah, super excited to be here and excited to have this combo.
Thank you, Beau. Yeah, that's a really helpful tee up. And Ronnie, I think Beau segued well into kind of where we want to kick things off today. So give us the origin story of Mavs TV. Like what exists now that previously did not exist, and what problems are being solved?
Absolutely. So this all began about 2 years ago. So in the summer of 2024, we were evaluating our options coming out of the RSN landscape, which we had been in for 20 plus years. And so the model that, after looking at all the different models, the one we landed on was combining a free over-the-air offering or network alongside a DTC streaming offering. So then at that point, sent out an RFP, talked to several companies, landed with Endeavor Streaming, now Deltatre. And at the beginning of the 24-25 season, we launched both our linear network alongside the streaming platform, Mavs TV.
Love it. Okay. And so what are you most proud of here that Mavs fans are now interacting with and engaging with from a Mavs TV perspective? And what has the kind of potential education process been like for Mavs fans? That's
Sure.
kind of a question for both of you, but Ronnie, I guess it's kind of a follow-up.
Absolutely. So the main thing we were focused on was declining viewership, which we were watching. It was a pretty rapid decline, and it was consistent year over year. And so we were watching that slowly unfold, and that was very important to us to correct that. And that might sound obvious, but there's competing priorities here, right? You could look at it revenue-wise or viewership-wise, fan engagement. So that's what we decided to focus on, and we were able to reverse that trend with a significant uptick in viewership in 24-25 compared to 23-24 and the years before that. So the way we did that, first of all, as I briefly mentioned, but we led with a free over-the-air deal both here in Dallas-Fort Worth and throughout our region. But because of cord cutting, and we were studying those statistics as well, and we knew that was probably the biggest player in declining viewership, then in addition to offering free antenna access to Mavs games, we wanted to offer the streaming access as well. So we went out with a subscription-based product, and true to our priority being viewership and reach, our strategy was to price it basically as low as we possibly could while maintaining the value and the integrity of the product. And then alongside that, a very generous gifting with purchase policy or practice. So basically, if a fan signed on for a season-long subscription the price was $125 for the full season, we offered them a gift of either a pair of tickets to a game, which some other teams had done, or a $75 merchandise gift card to our online store. So the attempt there was to get the net cost down to around $50, right? And then as that price dropped throughout the year, then the value of that gift card would drop, but we maintained that relative value. So that was our approach, and I think it worked well. As I said, viewership went up. We also did lead the league in subscriptions for a single team product in that 24-25 season. And yeah.
Why do you think you led the league, Ronnie?
Well, I would like to think it's because of that policy, that net price, getting that down. Now, there was not a gift for the monthly option. So monthly, it was $15 a month.
Okay.
And we couldn't really afford to build in an incentive for that. But the incentive in my mind there, or the benefit, was that you could cancel anytime with no strings attached. So, we'd see people hop on, hop off, depending on team performance, budget issues, or what have you. But it kind of gave two good options to people depending on their situation.
Got it. Flexibility, and you weren't locking people in. Got it. Thank you for sharing. That's great. So Beau, on your side, on the Deltatre side, talk to us about the origin, who on your team is working closely with Ronnie and his team, and how are you guys making decisions together and getting it to the point it's at now?
Yeah. I mean, I think Ronnie would agree with me here when I say that the real benefit to viewing these engagements as partnerships is, and less like a client vendor relationship, is we really try to serve as an extension of their team, right? And I think that ultimately, as we're shaping the strategy, there's two components, right? There's the technology component, and that's kind of what makes all of this go. So Deltatre, obviously, we have our Vesper platform, which is our end-to-end streaming platform that allows our partners to launch super quickly, monetize in different ways, and genuinely deploy this rich feature set. That's the tech component, right? The actual foundation, and oftentimes how fans or users unknowingly evaluate the platform. It's the does this work question. And I think from our standpoint, it's the history of large scale client success stories would support the idea that this is really a truly exceptional platform. And so I think that was a critical piece for us, right? Is making sure that Ronnie and the Mavs, they had the confidence and the ability that we could provide all the different things that they needed in a direct consumer platform, whether it's, certain features, functionality, our integration with the NBA and their entitlements and their purchase flow. But I think the other component is the commercial layer, right? And that's really where our strategy and growth services team comes in. And I think the first thing we do is work directly with Ronnie and the Mavs to size the opportunity. Like, what do we actually think this could generate from a subscription standpoint, from a revenue standpoint? How many people do we think are going to be viewing this, knowing all of the different factors like, DMA, blackout restrictions, competitive offerings, et cetera. And then we start to evaluate once again, alongside of Ronnie and the team, pricing and packaging, go to market, acquisition methods, retention methods, win back strategies. And a lot of this information, because we, have extremely good benchmarks and reference points from all the other work that we've done, allows us to predict and forecast this stuff with a higher level of accuracy and predictability. But I think the important thing to remember for us as we were working through with Ronnie and Mavs TV is there isn't a one size fits all approach here, right? I think that, this isn't something that you figure out once and move on. You need to be in the weeds collectively. And there's ongoing analysis, ongoing iteration, and especially in the first season, right? Where you're learning everything in real time. So I think what made this work is we realistically just operated as extra team members for the Mavs here across both the technology and the commercial or platform strategy, and not just one time or pre-launch. We're in the platform every day, right? Like, we built this together, but we continue to build this together across product, marketing, analytics. And I think that's the difference between a vendor relationship and a partner.
Thanks, Beau. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, I'd echo that. It is a true partnership. We have weekly calls on marketing and growing the subscriber base, among other things. Beau, I do think we'd be remiss not to mention the critical role that the NBA and that team played in the launch and the ongoing execution and growth strategy. So to circle back to the original question Taylor asked me, as I said, we really wanted this to be available to everyone on as many teams as possible. So part of that includes that you can access Mavs TV directly through League Pass, through the NBA app. So the product is built on the NBA ID system, and you don't have to download the Mavs TV app. You can on Roku and several others. But you can also just log in on your NBA app, whether it's on your smart TV, on your computer, on your phone. We have it through our team app as well. And so it's all built on that NBA infrastructure. And the team there that runs League Pass, the DTC team, has been instrumental as well.
I was going to ask about that. That's good to hear. And you kind of answered one of my questions, Ronnie, just kind of the interaction with the NBA there. That's great. Who else on your team, Ronnie? You mentioned weekly calls with Beau and team. Like, give me an idea. If I'm another rights holder saying, I want to launch my version of Mavs TV, like, what type of resources on your staff did you commit to this partnership and this launch regularly?
Well, it became a new task that was a priority for our marketing team and for our analytics team. And then obviously on the broadcast production side, there's a lot of things that have to be done in the truck, and whether it's, how do we get the signal to the right place? So that team's heavily involved as well. Those three, and then obviously the partnerships team as we look to monetize.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
those 4. Mhm.
Makes sense. I see some questions coming in. Thank you. We'll get to it, Joe. Appreciate it. Wanted to go a little deeper just on the relationship, the phase launch you guys had, the Ron, you started talking about your relationship with the NBA.
Yeah.
Can you give me some of the I call them dummy questions, like just basic questions? If I'm in Dallas, I can watch Mavs TV. If I'm not, what are my options? And then you started to talk about a bit how it interacts with NBA League Pass. You can use the NBA app,
Right.
infrastructure. What are solutions for fans basically in the Dallas region and then outside of the Dallas region, and how it interplays with just being a general global NBA fan? I want to make sure people understand that setup.
So definitely in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
If you live here, if you are here, you can subscribe and log in.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, so our linear television network, we have television deals in 13 markets throughout the region.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically all of Texas, with the exception of Houston and San Antonio, for obvious reasons.
Obviously, other NBA markets. Yep.
Right. And then the linear side bleeds a little bit into our neighboring states just through DMAs that are on the border. So a little bit into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and even New Mexico through El Paso and Amarillo. But then on the streaming side, it's a little bit further. We can go further into those states. So a pretty wide region. Now, that being said, the vast majority of our subscribers are in Dallas, Fort Worth, as you'd suspect, but we do track and analyze how we're performing in the other markets and the outer reaches. And then to your other question, so, well, you asked about NBA. I mean, I think I did already explain that part about League Pass. Okay, so, but you also brought up the phased approach, so we could speak to that a little bit if you'd like.
That'd be great.
So it was around Labor Day in 2024 that we made the decision to move forward with this plan. And the NBA season was starting, it was either 6 or 7 weeks after that. So we had been negotiating and doing our due diligence for months or a year leading up to that point. So pretty soon at that point, we were able to come to basically handshake terms with Endeavor Streaming at the time, or Deltatre. And they went on a sprint to get our CTV apps developed by the start of the season. Well, the way we had to launch it was by season tip-off, you could subscribe and you could stream, but only through the NBA app or the web. Then it was the week before Christmas, we were able to launch 3 of our connected TV apps. And that was Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Android TV. And there was a third phase after New Year. Though I can't remember if this was January or February, but it was one of the two before the All-Star break, I know, that we were able to launch on Roku, which was really the big one we were waiting on, right? That's the dominant provider we found in terms of smart TVs. So we kind of had 3 launches within that first season. Not ideal, but due to circumstances that were out of our control and when we were making the decision, that's just kind of how it played out.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful to know. And I see kind of a few good questions, or a couple of good questions here about the experience itself. So you've given us a good background, Ronnie, Beau, like how this launched, the DMAs, the interaction with NBA and the league, et cetera. Let's talk about the content itself. I'm a fan. I'm a Mavs fan on Mavs TV. I've subscribed. I'm in. Question from Cho. Did you guys see in the chat, like besides the games, what type of content are you filling up the network with to fill up the 24-hour experience? Like, talk to me about that and the strategy that goes into programming here and where you're at now and where you may hope programming continues to go. Question from you, jump on in.
We do have a slate of shoulder programming that we produce. It's not exclusive to Mavs TV. So we send it out through our linear television network, and then we also make sure to distribute that and make it available on Mavs TV as well.
Mm-hmm.
I will, maybe this goes without saying, but as a quick point of clarification, so it's not 24-hour programming. This isn't a fast channel. It's just an on-demand CTV app. We have launched a couple of products that are unique to subscribers on Mavs TV. So that includes a 15 to 20 minute condensed game that we actually get up. I think it's usually within an hour of a game concluding, that launches on Mavs TV. That's driven by AI. We have that cut through AI. We get that launched, and we use that as a selling point of, hey, if you subscribe to Mavs TV, here's a way you can watch the game. If time is short, right? So you can watch it in a shorter amount of time. We find that the wins get watched a lot more than the losses do. So the other thing I would say is we do put a lot of effort and resources into shoulder programming for branding purposes. We do think it's important, but we have found that the percentage of views on Mavs TV, it's overwhelmingly games and game replays. And so, by the way, we offer full game replays if you just want to go back and watch the full 2.5 hour experience, or that same 20-minute version. But if you were to line up just gross streams and compare non-game to game, it's overwhelmingly in the favor of games.
Yeah, and I think that that's consistent, right? Across any of our partners that have live games, the majority of acquisition and the majority of the acquisition windows are centered surrounding the live games or the start of the season. I think the more challenging question is, how do you get people coming back to the platform when there isn't a live game, right? Or how do you get people coming back to the platform when the season might be on a break, right? Or whether it's the off season or the all-star break, like what kind of content do you have that you can get people to engage with this with your platform? Mm-hmm. And realistically, the best cheat code you have there is evaluating the data from what you've done thus far, right? And this is where the iteration really comes into it, based off of what you have from an analytics and a back-end analytics suite or of services standpoint. Is you can very clearly tell, if you remove the live games, whether or not you're getting any traction from original content, replays, condensed games, general shoulder programming. And if you're seeing exciting metrics there, that opens up another revenue opportunity in itself, right? You can start to sell and sponsor some of this original content or shoulder programming or whatever it is, because this is a totally new, fully Mavs owned distribution channel, right? So things like that are monumentally important.
And so that would be a new asset, new product for like Ronnie's partnerships team, right? Okay, yeah. And so kind of to David's question here in the chat, like do subscribers see the similar ads as over the air? And if so, how are those ads sold versus like other content? I think maybe you answered that a bit, but is there anything you guys would add to that question, or just where the ads are being sourced? Absolutely.
So different teams do this different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so some teams pass through their linear ads as a value add to the partners who purchased those commercials. We did not take that approach. So we have a relationship with Playfly and FanServe, and they work closely with both Beau and the Deltatre team and also the NBA to insert ads into our game breaks. So it's the same commercial format, but if you watch the game on linear, and if you were sitting on your couch watching it on your phone at the same time, those 77 ad breaks would all be filled with unique ads from each other. And that, so it is a new revenue source in that sense, but it also brings up something that I wanted to share, which is, it is so intricate. I didn't fully appreciate this until I got involved with this 3 years ago. It is so intricate to pull any of this off, and all the different people that have to cooperate, all the different companies that have to come together just to serve one 30-second commercial on an NBA stream. I never turn on my smart TV and click an app anymore and take it for granted. I just know that there's a lot of work that goes into all of that, whether it's the live ops side or stitching the ads in or the graphics to get it up in the first place, or the entitlement to log in. It's quite the endeavor. So that was a learning for sure. And it applies to everything, but it specifically applied to the advertising. Just how many people had to get in the room to make that happen.
I think on that point, it really, really amplifies that this is a challenging business, right? And I think there's a lot of instances that we've experienced where, we work with people and properties of super well-resourced teams and then very, very lean operating teams, right? And I think the Mavs are probably on the one side of the paradigm where there's a lot of really talented people that spend a lot of time on Mavs TV. But the reality of the situation for everybody is this is oftentimes very new for people operating in this capacity, right? There's not a lot of people within a sports organization that have had to worry about, hey, what's your churn rate for your subscription video business? It's kind of a very nuanced component. And I think that that's a really important call out to make here is obviously you need good partners and everything, but what we've seen is there's a lot of folks that all of a sudden the OTT direct to consumer platform is now under their remit, right? And they have their day job, but they now have to manage this entire new business unit with a bunch of nuance that they don't have a good understanding of. And it's not that they're not a talented individual. It's just they might be a content person or a biz dev person. And there's a ton of different things to account for, especially, like ads, like making the decision on how you're going to monetize this. Are you going to focus on subscription revenue, or are you going to focus on ad revenue, or a hybrid of the two? What's your measuring stick, right? Are you trying to maximize subscribers? Are you trying to maximize revenue? What do you do when, the executives say, well, we want maximal subscribers and maximal revenue, right? Like, what does that strategy entail? And I think that's where we try and help folks like Ronnie and the Mavs shortcut some of these learnings, because we've been through this so many times that there's not a playbook by any means, but there are certain things that we can help streamline from a learning curve standpoint. And I think that that's vitally important as we move forward is making sure that we are giving and providing all of the guidance and structure that we can, because this is hard, but it's definitely possible to be very successful here.
Yeah. I thank you, Beau. And I think Michael has a really good question that kind of ties into that there in the chat, talking about first party data. I'd love to hear from both of you guys on this. This is, I think, a really sharp question. How is Mavs TV supporting the broader business across ticketing, merchandise, from the first party data that comes in through Mavs TV? Talk to me about that kind of connective tissue and how you're developing that. Maybe you wanted to start.
That was another one of our priorities when we did make the decision to launch our own product, as opposed to staying in our prior arrangement. I mean, I will say, before we launched this in 24-25, there was the ability for fans to stream games on a local basis. However, we did not have any insight into who those people were. So building that direct relationship with fans was, and who was watching our games, was very important to us. One of the reasons we did this. And we have been able to leverage that data into retargeting for whether it's tickets, merchandise. So that has come to fruition. And then it is not quite as much of a one-to-one basis, but it also plays into the story that we are able to tell our corporate partners on the number of fans and that are engaging with our product, who are seeing their marks and more information about them through data from Mavs TV.
Yeah, I think honestly, one of, if not the most valuable pieces of going direct to consumer is controlling your own data ecosystem, right? I think, you make the argument that the revenue component is the most valuable. Everybody gets that, but the for a long time, people have been obsessed with data to the point where it became like a mandatory buzzword. But in reality, it's collecting the data is one piece, and then actually activating that data or activating against that data that can produce massive amount of information and insights about your fan base that's extremely valuable and monetizable from arenas outside of subscription or ad revenue, right? Because when a fan or a user watches something through your service, and you can control all of the data that you're capturing, who they are, what they're watching, how long they're watching for, how long they stay, when they signed up, when they left, why they left. All of these pieces are painting this picture of each user. And then you can start to identify trends and internal and external causation of these trends based off of supporting data. So I think the opportunity for new revenue streams, like Ronnie was talking about, across merchandising, across, again, sponsorship, right? Evaluating these different pieces are super advantageous. So, if you see all of a sudden Kyrie content getting a massive spike, that's an immediate merchandising opportunity, right? If you see these massive spikes on original content, there's an immediate sponsorship opportunity. There's also, we do a lot of work with the UFC and Fight Pass, and they've been, our resident on our platform for many years. And because of the amount of data that they had, we were able to create machine learning propensity models. So we could dictate into segmentations. Hey, these folks are the most likely to churn. These folks are the most likely to stream. These folks are the least likely to churn. And then we communicate with those people differently, right? And we can use those segmentations as foundations for lookalike models. We saw dramatic decreases in our CPAs in terms of customer acquisition, just because we were able to build out these models based off of first party data. So there's no shortage of application. It's just having the strategy of what you want to collect and what you want to do with it. And I think, owning your own distribution and all the information that comes along with that can unlock meaningful fan engagement, efficiencies, revenue. And I think that's going to continue to become more and more valuable every single day.
Yep. Teams just own the channels to their fans, just, in a more intelligent way where they can just mine those insights. That's great. And there's a couple more questions kind of building on this, but I think in general, I guess I'd ask, kind of looping together a couple of these questions here. What insights have you learned, Ronnie, about Mavs fans that maybe you didn't know before you launched Mavs TV, if any?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we did discover a whole new batch of fans that we like, meaning individuals, people that were new to us, that maybe had been watching some other way, don't come to games perhaps, or come on someone else's ticket. And then they subscribed, and then we knew who they were. So that absolutely happened. And then I do see David's question here about the difference. Yes, there is a marked difference between people who watch on linear and people who stream. It's obviously younger on the streaming side, but it's not too young because you still have to pay for it. So it's with it being a subscription-based streaming model. It doesn't go too young, but definitely skews younger, which is good.
That makes sense.
Younger adults. Yeah.
To this point, guys, we've talked about kind of how this whole launch happened. You mentioned kind of the phase launch that happened, new first party data opportunities, et cetera. Ronnie and Beau, what are some challenges here that people may not really appreciate or understand on the outside looking into launching a DTC solution like this?
One that I had wanted to mention was how important the communication is to your fan base, which probably sounds very obvious, but part of what we learned is it doesn't matter how good of a job you did or you think you did in outlining it and making it clear and reaching out. It doesn't matter how proactive you were about reaching out to people about how to get the games now. You could give yourself an A+ on that, and there are still going to be a huge number of fans who have no idea how to watch your games. People are busy and they don't like to necessarily pay attention to communications that you push to them all the time, or they may not take the time to go look on your website and look at the beautiful FAQ page that you put together on how to view your broadcast. It's just, you have to repeat that communication to the point that you probably feel like it's overkill, but it's not. It feels like it's never overkill to tell people where to find your games when you're launching a new model. So that was a big learning. I mean, we'll be 2 years in, and this is anecdotal, but I'll see someone in the neighborhood that I know, and they'll say, well, I don't know how to watch your games anymore. And I'm thinking, you know me, you know what I do for a living, and you're a Mavs fan, I know that. But for 2 years, we've had this new model, and you still have no idea. So I take the grassroots campaign personally. I tell people, I ask people at the office to tell people, but obviously putting large swath of resources behind it as a franchise is important, and it's never enough. People are creatures of habit, right? They've been used to getting the games in one way for decades now. And then when that changes, it's hard to get through.
Yeah. I would say there's internal and external challenges to account for, which makes, this business so difficult. And externally, right, there's a lot of things that dictate your subscription base that are outside of the operating team's control, right? Especially in sports. So if you have a lot of users on a monthly subscription and your team performance isn't the best, then you start to see increased churn, and there's nothing that can be done there other than strategically trying to encourage folks to sign up for a longer term SKU, right? And I think that's the type of strategy that protects you a little bit from some of the things that you can't control. Is how do we reduce the amount of churn opportunities from 12 to 1 based off of things that we can't edit or change. And then I think internally there's one of the more difficult things, at least in our experience, is understanding the actual opportunity and not the aspirational one, but the actual one, right? If you're thinking about how many subscribers we can get and how we're going to evaluate whether or not this is a success or not a success, how are you backing into that, and who on your team is able to put a realistic model together? And I think there's, the idea of making sure that you are defining your commercial priorities very cleanly, right? I think Ronnie and the Mavs did a great job. Their commercial priority, or their priority for this platform in general, was how do we get Mavs fans access to Mavs games, right? How do we make this as widespread as possible and not effectively price gouge them, right? We want everyone to be able to experience the Mavs. So I think that setting the precedent and the commercial priority along with how you're measuring the success it sounds relatively simplistic, but with all of the different metrics that you're going to be evaluating, from obviously subscribers, revenue, watch time, how many people are watching concurrently, there's a lot of data that can make it a little bit noisy in trying to determine if this is doing well. So I think one of the largest challenges is, let's all align on what the purpose of this is, and then let's all align on whether or not, or all align on how we're going to measure the success or the failure of this in the short and long term.
That's very well said. Thank you. Thank you, Beau. Kind of as like a final question here, I guess I'd ask for both of you to give advice and maybe summarize some of the things you said and just distill some of your main takeaways from, this partnership and this Mavs TV launch. What advice would you give to other teams who say, you know what, we want our own streaming solution now? And Ronnie, I'd start with you, and then Beau, we can end with you.
Don't underestimate how hard it will be, but don't let that keep you from doing it. We all do hard things, right? Don't underestimate the impact it can have on your business as well. It's been really great. And I should mention as well, so our linear deal is with Tegna. They've been wonderful partners. And we really look at Mavs TV as part of a larger strategy, right? So we do lead with the communication to our fans that all of our local games are free over the air. We say that over and over again because we wanted that free access. But a lot of people don't want that, right? So we have this as the partner offering to that, and it's been very successful. So I feel like we're able to meet kind of all people where they are.
Thanks, Ronnie. That's great. Beau, distilled advice for other teams looking at this type of solution?
Yeah, I think in bullet point form, I think it's don't build the business case on optimism, right? Like do the work, evaluate the opportunity, be realistic with yourselves. Two would be, again, just to hit on, define your priorities, define your commercial priorities. The Mavs were excellent at this. And the last one, I think the most important one is keep the fan at the center of this throughout the entire process, not just at the end when you're thinking about marketing, right? And audiences. You have to treat the fan as the people that you're building this for, not as the people that you're trying to sell this to. And I think the businesses or teams that do this best, that leads to the commercial successes, right? Every decision should come back to what does this say to our fans, right? Because if our fans don't subscribe, nothing else really matters. So I think, that would be the critical points of advice here is just make decision is based off of what's best for the fans, what's best for your brand, and find partners who are genuinely in this for the long term. And I think that you'll have success.
I love it, Beau. Well, guys, I think that's a nice place to leave this. We really appreciate you both taking time to come on, talk about what you built together here, the successes, the learnings, etc. Thank you, everyone, for dropping questions into the chat as well. We always love when we can work those into the conversation. That's great. Beau, Ronnie, very nice to meet you guys during this process as well and learn more about this. This is what we strive to do with these SBJ Live shows, is just kind of focus on some really great case studies that are impactful for the sports industry. And again, thank you for helping deliver that today, guys.
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks everyone for the questions as well. This is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
This was great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining.